Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one about coaching. In fact, 15 coaching conversation questions that you can use. I love these episodes when they actually give you tools that you can apply straight away. Plus there's this
ability where we can think something and then we can think about what we think about it, and then we can think about what we think about the thing that we're thinking about.
Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? And why did Sasha's butt clench?
Why did my buttocks clench?
And this may be the worst movie explanation of all time. Not superhero, but basically they've been around for a long time and then they end up doing good through the world and trying to not change things, but if something happens, they might go in there, and I'm not explaining it very well. Anyway, that's the show. Let's get it. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one about the 15 performance coaching questions. I hope there's 15. There might even be more than 15 by the time we finish, but we're starting off with a solid 15, and these are things that you can use in conversations when you are doing performance coaching with people. And to help me with this conversation this week, well, every week, and for the last 74 episodes, it's Sasha Coburn.
Hello!
Hello. What have you been doing?
Eating raisins. And the reason that's exciting is because I'm going on this 40-day plan starting tomorrow. And the boxes of stuff arrived, it's all stuff. And I don't think raisins are in the 40-day plan. So honestly, I said to myself, as soon as those boxes arrive, day one is the day after the boxes arrive. And so guess what I'm having for tea tonight?
What?
Fish and chips.
Yeah, you are.
I know that's ridiculous, right? And my whole, what I'm doing, it's just about health. I've really started to be thinking about just being more deliberate about my health and particularly my internal health. So it's nothing like woo-woo detox or cleanse or anything like that. It's just quality food for 40 days. And I've chosen 40 days because that's how long Jesus went into the desert for and was tempted by the devil. So,
do you reckon he just cleared out the pantry before he went in there as well?
I reckon he had fish and chips the night before.
Or at least the fish.
Oh, I hate it when I make an analogy that makes it sound like I think I'm God. So sorry about that, everybody.
I know.
It's just aspirational.
At least you don't sound like God this week because we've got a better microphone set up than the other week.
The voice from above.
So anyway, we are talking about coaching conversations today, and what I kind of put together is 15 questions. They're not in any particular order. You can use them how you want, but sometimes when you are sitting down in a conversation, and specifically this conversation we're talking about is someone who wants to get better at what they do, or they might have come and asked you for some advice. So it's someone that wants to be in the conversation, which I think is an important frame because so much of performance coaching is often based on that kind of connection and rapport that you can have with someone, and is really reliant on your ability to be present, ask great questions, and also get your tone right so that you can get personal and they do want to respond to that.
Yeah, and lots of the quote-unquote coaching conversations that we have in work environments, the person doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
They are there because they've been told they have to be there or they're going to lose their job, or this is part of your company's regular thing that you have to go to. I remember I spoke once at a conference, and I can't say who the group was because it's super secret, so it was spies. And a couple of people walked out before I even started, and I was like, wow. And rather than get upset by that, I thought that's great because I actually only want to talk to people who want to be in the room. And that's the same in a coaching conversation. The most powerful coaching conversations you can have are when both people are willing participants. So that's what we're talking about today. So we're going to spend no time like how to get people on side. We're going to presume that the person that you're talking with, and similarly, if you're going for coaching, we're presuming that you want it. So, I mean, what I love about some of these questions that you've put together, Ash, is that as much as it's useful for a coach to learn these or for an employer to learn these, they're questions we can ask ourselves on any given day of the week. If we start to feel flat, or why aren't things working out for us, or, you know, what's the next step? these questions can powerfully unlock the answers that we already know within ourselves. So, yay, let's go.
So before we get to question number 1, was it the Illuminati that you were presenting to?
Oh, now I have to kill you.
Oh, damn it! All right, so question number 1, and this might sound like a really odd question, but I think it gets missed so often. And it's a question that helps the person position what they're wanting to get. And it's simply, what would you like to have achieved by the end of the session?
Oh, yeah.
So if you ask the person that, then what they're going to give you is some insight into a possible direction that they would like to head in. Because we're not mind readers. We're not here to play psychologists. We're here to help people move to the next level. And if they can give us some indication of where they want to go, then we can obviously explore why, but then we can start to ask more questions and eventually give them some tools.
It's the classic Stephen Covey habit, right? Begin with the end in mind. So before you begin the coaching session, say, what is it that you want to get out of it? One of the reasons this is super powerful is sometimes the person who's being coached has an expectation that is not going to be met. And so even getting that out early is really good. So I think that most often people who go for coaching, if you say to them, what do you want to get by the end of the session? Most of them will say something like, I want you to tell me what to do. I have this problem, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Because what we're looking for is advice or certainty. And yet the nature of a coaching conversation is not for the person who's being the coach just to dump all the answers. It's really to almost answer a question with another question to get you thinking and maybe gaming out different scenarios. So if you're coaching someone and they say, well, by the end, I want to have the answer, really useful up front to be able to say, I don't know that we're going to get there today, but what we are going to be able to do is flesh out some possibilities for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can even double layer this question after they've reflected on it and kind of go, well, I'd like to get this from the session. You could say, if it was an employment situation, and what do you think your employer would like you to get from the session? So just looking at it from different angles, and within that conversation, that can then give you avenues to sort of go out and explore. Here's a question that works quite well. If your job disappeared tomorrow, what would you do? So sometimes if you're working with people that aren't sure if they want to take the next step or what their next step is, if you just take away everything that they currently do, it would be interesting to see if they've thought about where they would like to head, because the answer to that could, again, give you avenues.
It's also really interesting to note what your emotional response to that is. So if your job disappeared tomorrow, what would you do? Some people will answer that with an emotion. They'll say, I would just cry. I'd be really upset. And others will say, celebration, that would be freedom. I would be set free from these chains. That tells you a lot about your current state of mind. I mean, I don't know about you, Ish, but we are living in a time of COVID. I mean, I know you are, but I don't know about your response. I don't want COVID, but I really want to get it. So I just have a week in my room where people bring me food. And as soon as I recognize that within myself, that tells me I'm ready for a holiday. I need a break.
Well, next time I get a positive rat test from someone, I'm going to send it to you. And then you can just hold it out the door and go, hey, Chris, check it out. It's payback time.
I've just bought a little red pen and I'm just going to write my own line in. That's it, guys. 7 days. See you later.
That's awesome. All right, another question that you could do, and this might be framing around if someone is trying to understand what their value is or what they bring to a situation. So you could ask something like, what do you want a conversation with you to be like? How do you want people to feel after a conversation with you? So it allows them to explore the value they add or what they bring to the table. And again, with all of these kind of questions, if someone says, I'm not sure, you can say, well, if you did know, what would it be? We use the techniques to explore and get more information, but they're good places to start framing up situations.
This is about impact. What impact do you think you have on other people? How do you want to make other people feel? Is there a gap between the impact you'd like to be having and how you think you are being perceived at the moment? And how do you close that gap?
And that kind of leads quite nicely into the next couple of questions, because one of the most powerful coaching conversations I've had is when they actually identified what they called key stakeholders. So they said, who are your key stakeholders? So that can be everything broken down from family to team to work. It could be individuals. And then once you kind of identified who those groups are, then you can ask the next question, what do you think they would say about you? It's interesting sometimes to look at it from that perspective, and then you can say, well, what are you basing that on? Or can you give an example of why they would say that? And we flesh out the conversations more. But this is really a level of self-awareness that we're switching on.
Metacognition, I saw in the Harvard bookstore, they do a whole series of talks. And there's this guy that's got a new book out. His name is Stephen Fleming. And why I remember that is because we have a cricket player in New Zealand called Stephen Fleming. It's not that one. It's a different one. It's not the former New Zealand cricket captain. And he's a bit of an expert in self-awareness and this idea of metacognition, which is thinking about thinking. And as human beings, we think we have this unique ability where we can think something and then we can think about what we think about it and then we can think about what we think about the thing that we're thinking about. And if you're not careful, you just end up in this spiral of, but it's this really unique thing we have, which is it's our ability to notice our own thoughts. And so when you are in a coaching situation, it's really useful to teach people to notice their own thoughts. So as the coach, you are asking these questions and you're encouraging the person that you're with, just notice what happens as I ask these questions. How do they make you feel? When do you feel, when are you excited by where our conversation is going? Where do you feel fearful? And anything you can do to heighten your awareness can be really helpful until you go so far that you stop being present in the moment because the whole time you're just analysing yourself. Yeah. And that's a whole nother problem altogether.
Well, that's one of the things we've done when we've done leadership training together is helping people again switch on those levels of awareness. So if you're in a situation you're feeling uncomfortable, why are you feeling uncomfortable? Is it what's happening or is it your response to what's happening and where's that coming from? And you've often used the term, who taught you to want that or who taught you to think like that, and starting to unpack that. I love the term premature evacuation, where you're in a meeting and then you don't want to be in the meeting anymore, and that level of awareness of what caused that. We're having a good conversation and now we're not and I want out. What switched? What changed for you in that? Why am I bored?
Why am I angry?
Why am I angry? Why am I crying right now?
Why am I furious? Why are my eyes leaking? Why did my buttocks clench?
I thought you were going to say, why is my buttocks leaking? It's like...
So mean to me, I like it.
A question I love is, what is your definition of success?
Oh, yes.
I love that frame, and just hearing someone reflect that back. If they say they want to be successful in something, what is your definition of success? What does it look like? What does it mean to you? Why does it mean that? And exploring that as an avenue.
And so often how we define success is not actually how we gear up our lives. So we go, success for me is having a happy family. Well, what are you doing about having a happy family? I'm working every hour God gave me to provide for them. Well, do they care about that? Do they care about your flash house, or would they rather you were home more often? All really interesting questions.
Yeah. What would you like to happen with your job?
I'd like someone else to do it and still be paid.
I like that. Let's explore that, Sarge. But yeah, it could be that, but some people might be going, I just want it to be over, or I want to be promoted, or I want this to change, or I want this boss to go. Oh. And again, we explore. Yeah,
I want better projects to work on, or I like my job except for X.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting things can crop up from that.
I love this question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to?
Ooh.
So if you decide to change your behavior and say yes to doing something, it means that you're now saying no to something else. So if you're saying yes to 40 days of great food, you're saying no to fish and chips after tonight, right?
Yes. If you're saying yes to the cake, you're saying no to healthy insides.
Yeah. But that's it. So it is interesting looking at both of those things, because sometimes what you're saying no to may be something that you kind of go, actually, I don't want to give that up. So if I do have to commit to this thing and I am going to do extra time and it's going to take extra this or extra that, and I'm going to lose all of this other stuff, maybe I don't want it. So yeah, interesting framing, sort of both sides of the conversation there.
It helps you understand the consequences of choice as well. And so often, people want to have all this freedom and they want to be free of the consequences. So, if we take a classic example of that as someone who says, oh, I really love my wife, but since we have children, she, doesn't put out so much. So I just want to be free to get a bit of action. And you go, yeah, well, you can be, but you're not going to be free from the consequence of that decision. If what you want is to try and have everything, then good luck. And so often we get the rights bit without the responsibilities. And so I think what this question forces us to evaluate is all of our choices have consequences. And often we're choosing sometimes between two bad things, but we're really choosing which one is less disastrous or which one is more palatable to us. I mean, it's fascinating talking to my parents the other day. They have been Christian and religious all their life, and they're just reflecting on some faith things. And my mum in particular, she just thinks we're meant to suffer. And I'm not laughing, but she kind of thinks that, well, I think she thinks this, that people these days are a bit soft and that we weren't guaranteed joy and laughter through our entire lives, and there are elements of suffering. And then there's other people who believe, no, our life should be full of way more joy and way more love, and so make decisions around that. But nothing is consequence-free.
What reward are you getting from this current behavior, or how is it serving you? Now, this was part of a coaching conversation I had when I was kind of in that mindset where it was just, well, I'll just do it myself, or I love a drama because then I can go in there and solve the problem, put out the fire, save the day. So by not just reflecting on the initial behavior, but reflecting on what reward I'm getting from that, it was interesting to really unpack that. Suddenly I had this perception of the value I was adding was because I could do these things better, faster than other people. But actually understanding that there's a cost to doing that because I'm not training anyone else to do it, and I'm just probably running a superhero complex in the background, right? So how is that serving you, and what reward are you getting from the behavior? If you could change one thing right now, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question, right? Because I think what it does for people that you are in a coaching environment with is it's a prioritization question. It says, amongst all of the troubles or the challenges that you are facing right now, amongst the obstacles, would you go towards something or move away from something? What is the thing you would change? And what will most often be the first thing that comes to mind for you is often the most pressing.
What advice would you give your younger self?
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
Oh, this is a good one. Can you answer that question, Ash? What advice would you give your younger self?
Apart from the fact that I would tell myself not to watch porn.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap. If you're listening, it's a trap.
It's a trap. It's not real.
I would tell myself and remind myself, you won't always feel this way. It's something I say to myself often now, and it helps me no end. So when I do feel emotional or angry about something, or I'm frustrated or I'm anxious, just stop and saying, you won't always feel like this, and being able to come back to it at a later date.
This too will pass.
This too will pass. If I had known that when I was younger, I think I would have made better decisions. I would have thought things through, especially when you're younger and you're a teenager. I think you just end up in this drama that the world is only like this. And yeah, and nowadays, man, we joked about it the other day when we were talking to Matt about we're lucky we were Generation X and all that dumb stuff wasn't on social media. But now, when everything is just out there, it would be a good frame. So I'd probably, say something like that to my younger self. What about you, Sash?
Well, that's so interesting because I can completely relate to that. I was heartbroken a number of times when I was younger, and even in those moments, I knew I wouldn't always feel like that. I knew it would pass, but I just wanted it to be over faster. I was just so hurt in those situations. But ironically, what I kind of would want to tell my younger self now is wallow, because as you get older, you feel nothing. You have no feelings. You just have responsibilities called cooking the dinner, feeding the children. Nothing much will touch you because you are going to turn out to be Teflon, and you're going to laugh that you ever shed a single tear over some stupid boy. So in some respects, I wouldn't want to change those experiences of when I was younger. And maybe the advice would be, don't be so needy in the first place.
Oh, that's awesome. You so reminded me when you were saying that, well, it just jumped into my mind, that song, Always Wear Sunscreen. Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
But there was a line in that, and it says, one day you will look back on photos of yourself and realize how amazing you were and how great you looked. It's funny, probably only recently within the last 5-6 years, we do look back on that stuff. And now Google Photos presents that stuff to you, right? And you just think back and go, damn, I was great back then. What the hell happened now? But it's so interesting.
And here's what I think scary about that is, most likely for you and me, apart from my 40 days of goodness that I'm about to get into, just ignoring that for one moment, we're most likely never going to have more energy than we have right now.
Yeah.
We are most likely never going to get more better looking than we are right now. Right now, we're at our peak for what's ahead of us. And so, as tempted as I am to look back and go, wow, you were so much hotter back then, I'm actually reminding myself, I'm the hottest I'm ever going to be right now. So I should be enjoying and dancing and celebrating and snowboarding and doing all those things now, because eventually I won't be able to. So rather than looking back with sort of lustful regret, I'm kind of just looking forward and saying, do the things now. Do them now while we can.
For those of you that follow our Instagram page, you would have noticed that we're doing like a little notebook series, and I've got little thoughts and reflections. But the one that gets posted this week is time is your only limited resource.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so true. Everything else, money, relationships, friendships, all of that stuff can grow and shrink and everything. But time is really the only limited resource. You don't get it back. So what are your values? Now, this is a big question, but it is quite a good question, because it's not something that often you go, right, tell me now, what are your values? And like, I could open up my phone and we could go through them because I've thought through that stuff. But for a lot of people, they either haven't thought about it, or they might have a 1 or 2 lists or ideas, but it's something that they could go away and really reflect on. And we've done a show previously on the one about values, and you could listen to that and the process we take through. But I think it is an important question to ask in coaching conversations, because if they are motivated by money or family or respect or whatever it is, it's helpful, because at least then you know maybe what type of advice or recommendations or tools you might be giving them that can either challenge that or embrace that.
Yeah, and I reckon that one of the blocks that we so often face, whether it's in our personal life or our professional life, these blocks occur when we are living in a way that is incongruent with our values, or we are not giving enough weight or airtime to values that are important. So when you have that general kind of malaise where you're like, I'm just not kind of at my best, I've lost my mojo, often it will be because something is out of alignment in terms of what really matters to you. So if you really care about animals, for example, and it's been months and months since you've done anything about your animal charity work or invested in pets or been out in nature or whatever it is, that can lead to that feeling of kind of just a general blur. So by asking someone that you are helping or working with, or asking yourself, what are my values? What's most important to me? And am I giving it the appropriate time? That helps give you an insight into why perhaps you're not in a peak performance state.
Another question that can be quite useful, it's usually a follow-on question. So maybe something's come up and they're talking about it, and you just simply ask the question, why is that important to you? And then when they answer that, you can ask it again. And why is that important to you? So you're starting to kind of peel back the layers of the onion. Nobody likes onions. Everyone likes parfait. It's got layers. But yeah, you sort of peel back the layers and kind of get to the root of what we're really talking about. And again, it's not really to pass judgment on something. It's really that you as a coach or in a coaching conversation can help them explore why that is, or can basically help them go to the next level when you have a better foundation for understanding how they think. And the last question that we've got is, what behaviours would you need to put in place to achieve that goal? It's a great one if they have identified something they want to work on, because actually this is like the fastest way to change, right? It's like you want to change the behaviour because you're not happy with it. What behaviours would you need to put in place to make that change? Go forth and do the behaviors. Like that is the fastest coaching conversation you can have with someone. And then you can set the goals and targets and leverage around it.
You will need to buy all of your food from a box company.
So those are 15 questions that you can use in coaching conversations. Maybe they'll be helpful if you're sitting down and you're trying to give someone advice or explore that. Maybe if you are wanting to get coaching, you can reflect on these yourself, and maybe you can even go to someone and say, look, I've got a series of questions I want you to ask me, and then we're just going to have a chat about it with someone you trust.
Maybe you can put them in your back pocket, and when you go to the coach, if they don't ask you any of these questions, at the end of the session, just say, nah, look, I'm not paying because you didn't ask me a single one of Ish and Sasha's top 15 questions, so you're rubbish. So, rounding us off on coaching, can you remember the best coaching session you've ever had?
Yes.
Same. I can remember too. And so I reckon getting good at this stuff is super helpful because it makes a lasting impact on people's lives. And I can remember the exact moment in the coaching session where I had this, not an epiphany, but I just understood something about myself in a way that I'd never had before. And that's the power. That's the opportunity that that we each have when we spend time and invest in other people. And I think that's a great gift to be able to give others.
Watched a great movie the other day, Sasha.
Yes.
It was called The Old Guard.
Oh.
Charlize Theron.
Can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong. But so it's basically, I don't wreck it for anybody, but we'll wreck it slightly. So yeah, they're immortal, and so it's kind of a superhero, not superhero, but basically they've been around for a long time, and then they end up doing good through the world and trying to not change things, but if something happens, they might go in there, and I'm not explaining it very well.
Do they move through time?
No.
So do you see them in different epochs? So it's all set in one time zone?
Oh, sorry, they don't move through time. See, it's in one time zone. You get the occasional flashback, but not often.
But they have lived for thousands of years, so they're like vampires.
Yeah, they're like vampires, but they're good guys.
But they're not vampires, yeah.
One of the questions that gets asked of them in the movie is like, are you good guys? And they said, at the moment we are. So it's kind of the perception of what side they were fighting on, I guess, was the perception of whether they were good or bad. But yeah, it was excellent. It was really good.
Yeah, interesting.
And then I watched The Bubble with Karen Gillan, who is Amy Pond in Doctor Who. I know I'm losing you. Oh, Ruby Roundhouse in Jumanji.
Yeah, I just have like an old woman's face on going, you're making sounds, but I don't understand what they mean.
So anyway, this movie, it was kind of quirky, kind of different, and it was basically filmed at the time COVID was hitting. This was the whole, the way it was done. So they basically are trying to finish this movie, but they're in their bubble, and then one gets COVID, they all get locked in their rooms for 14 days and have to come out again. So it's funny. Yeah, it was a bit of a laugh. Oh, yeah,
I like the sound of that. Those are good recommendations. Thank you, Ish. Thank you for our beat on popular culture.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just hanging out for Top Gun, to be honest.
Aren't we all?
Oh, so good. Honestly, it's I can't even explain how excited I am about this movie. It's good to be excited about something.
I reckon, are they going to use the same, like, is it a remake and it's going to be the same soundtrack, or is it going to be like new?
New. So it's literally Tom Cruise as Maverick, and it's got Iceman, it's got anyone who didn't die, obviously, in the first movie is back, and it just picks up.
So it's not, wow, that shows you how much I don't know.
So he comes back, comes back to coach or at the Top Gun school. And so that's about all I know so far. So exciting.
That is super exciting. Yay! I do love a good Scientologist leading man.